Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight, it was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. With I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. What the slump yesterday is. The slump continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad, back with you with Toadstool Sports. It is Tuesday, March 3rd. March Madness, officially began last night. That game did go over, so I was right about that. Cleveland State won and scored over 100 points or something, so they will now probably lose to Wright State. So that was the kickoff of the Horizon League tournament last night. It wasn't it was not an unentertaining game. There were not a lot of people in the stands when the game started. There were more by the end of it. I mean, it was a more entertaining game than people would think, probably, although it wasn't really that close by the end of it. IUPUI, not a very good team. We went 2-1 on the show yesterday. NC State was a complete bust, but then the other 2 games were good. We almost got 2 outright underdog winners. We did get one with Southeastern Louisiana. That line was mostly 6.5 when the game went off, but they won outright. So that was a winner regardless of what number you got on that. And then Utah covered, but it was kind of disappointing because they almost won the game. They had the lead in the final seconds of the game, and they wound up losing by 3. That was like, oh my God, they might win this game outright. There was a chance. I think the Nuggets have won like 8 or 9 games in a row against the Jazz, but we needed the Jazz to cover there. Now, I have to decide what I want to do here. Am I actually going to just go like full bore on this? Am I just going to start betting on all these games now again? I could do it like I used to, where I wasn't putting that much money on it, but I don't really have other income right now. So am I going to finally make this my income? I don't know. I have a decent amount of money to start with here, but I would really have to start building this up. I like my plays today. I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to give you 3 college basketball plays, and they're all actually in major conferences. I'll talk about the conference tournament games that are happening as well. And then I have 1 hockey play and 1 NBA play today as well. Dirty Sock, what's up? There was a chance, but it wound up not being the case. But you know me, I tell you, when you play an underdog, I always recommend putting a little bit of money on the money line. You're still going to win the majority of the bet if they cover, and you're putting money on it because you think that will happen. And if that's going to happen, there's a decent likelihood. I'm saying there's a chance that they might be able to pull off the outright upset. I mean, if you're talking about like a 20-plus point dog and you don't want to do it, I guess fine. But even then, I still recommend I just got to do it. Put like 1% of the bet on the money line on those massive underdogs. The Utah one, I probably would have also said like 1% of the bet on the money line there, maybe up to about 3% on a smaller dog, like a single-digit dog in football, basketball. I would actually say put 10% of it on the money line. All right, let's get into this. Yes, correct. Yes, Dumb and Dumber, good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. Let's get into today's slate, man. We have a couple of 6 and 6:30 p.m. games here. Pretty big college basketball board today. I mean, it is a Tuesday, but we're getting into the end of the season here. Now, we do have to talk about some of these conferences. We have to talk about, like, some of these teams have their positions wrapped up, so I will try to mention all of the stuff that I, like, noticed when I was looking at it, because I always have to look at that. Like, I'm looking at the conference tournament structure. I'm like, who can't, like, change their seed at this point now that we have, like, one game left, So I will talk about those. With the big conferences, you don't really have that type of situation yet in most cases, although I believe Arizona and Duke both did wrap up the 1 seed in their respective conferences last night, though. SEC Network at 6 p.m. Tennessee, who's back in the rankings at number 23, is at South Carolina. I believe Tennessee should be a ranked team, so I don't really have any issue with them being ranked. But the thing is, with Tennessee being ranked again, that kind of puts a target on their back again. So I think South Carolina will get up for this game. Tennessee is debatably in a sandwich spot here, so I did consider South Carolina here. Tennessee's coming off a really close call against Alabama. That was a big game, and they have a big game on deck against their primary rival, Vandy, who they did already beat on the road, but that is a huge game as well. So I do think this is a sandwich. I think they could overlook South Carolina here. I don't believe these teams have played this season. I don't think there's any actually, I don't know. Let me look. I don't know if there's any danger of, like, is South Carolina going to not make the SEC tournament? Let me see. This is one that I didn't look at because I was like, oh, I think every team makes the tournament, but I might be wrong. I'm looking right now. Yeah, every team makes the tournament, so South Carolina's not they don't have to worry about being eliminated from the tournament because they'll be in it, but they are the last place seed, but you got to think they're going to get up for this game, man. I mean, they've lost most of their recent games. They just got blown out at Georgia. Now they get to play a slow-paced Tennessee team at home. South Carolina also likes to play slow. This is their final home game against a pretty, like a name team, basically. So I would take the points with South Carolina here. You're getting a decent amount of points, although it did drop from 12 to 8.5, so I don't know what really spurred that move. So you're getting a little bit less value on the number here. 88% of the tickets, 94% of the cash on Tennessee. Looks like they're getting some of the money right now, maybe at the lower number. So, I don't know. That almost leads me to believe there might be an injury on the Tennessee side, and there's money coming in on the lower number there just because there's some value in that lower number on Tennessee at this point. I don't know, but I'm a situational guy. I think the situation tells you South Carolina here. It's a low total in the 140s. I would lean towards taking the points with South Carolina, but that one does not make my card. Kyle, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. And again, Tennessee is a slow defensive team, too, so covering as a road favorite like that, usually not something you want to do. I'm going to skip the conference tournament games here. We do have, I think, one Sun Belt game today. I think there is one Horizon League game tonight. The Patriot League starts as well. So those tournament games, I think those are the only conference tournament games. So I'm going to talk about those last, as I did yesterday. I'm going to mention just real quick in the American East here, because I don't really have much to say about these games, but UMass Lowell is already locked into, I believe, the 4 seed. So UMass Lowell, well, I'll just talk about this briefly. They have nothing to play for tonight, basically, because they're guaranteed the 4 seed in the American East. They can't advance. They can't drop. They're playing on the road at Maine, and they already beat Maine by 14 at home. So they might just not show up in this game. Maine might have a reason to because it's their final home game. They still are jockeying for positioning a little bit as far as the seeding. They're not in danger of dropping. I think Binghamton actually is already eliminated from the American East tournament now. I think Binghamton's out. So Maine, still they're playing for revenge in their final home game, and they just lost to Binghamton, which is a really bad loss. And they're coming back home, and they lost their last couple of home games too. So I would lean Maine in that game. Again, like I never would want to lay like a road price with a team that has nothing to play for, which is UMass Lowell here. They're -1. They're already potentially looking ahead to playing in the conference tournament. So, and then UMBC and NJIT, the much overrated NJIT team. But the problem with fading NJIT in this spot is that UMBC already has wrapped up the 1 seed in the American East, so they don't have anything to play for right now. They could be looking ahead to the tournament. they're on a huge roll. I mean, they've won 8 games in a row, I think. So if they lose this game, it will hurt their momentum a little bit, but having to have a break before the conference tournament might hurt your momentum as well. But it's a second straight road game. They're playing an NJIT team they already beat once. I know NJIT sucks, but I think NJIT might be the right side in this game. They're coming off that ugly loss to Bryant. They're back at home for their final home game. I believe that I think there is still a chance they can advance back to the 2 seed, which really would be ridiculous because they're not good. They're not even as good as Vermont. But UMBC doesn't have anything to play for in that game, and it's revenge for NJIT and their final home game. So something to keep in mind there. I would lean to NJIT, which is really, really bad. UMBC is a 5-point road favorite. It's a pretty low total there, too. Ugly game. And even uglier is Bryant and New Hampshire, but New Hampshire is already locked into the 8th seed now in the American East, so they have made the American East tournament. Binghamton is out. New Hampshire still might show up, though, for their final home game. So this is a really tricky handicap because they technically don't have anything to play for as far as the seeding is concerned. But they already lost to Bryant once on the road, and it's their final home game, and they probably don't want to go into the tournament on whatever this is, 8-9 game losing streak, so they might show up for that reason. New Hampshire is down from 3.5 to 3 here, though, so some money looks like it came in on Bryant, and it is a really low total in that game. But, yeah, that's a game I'm completely staying away from. Number 16, Alabama, is at Georgia on ESPN News at 6:30 p.m. ESPN News does carry some of these games, even still. I think Alabama's not in a very good spot. That was a big win for them against Tennessee, dude, because Tennessee had beaten them 5 times in a row. Huge win, really, for Alabama there against Tennessee, even though they were a home favorite. Now they're playing a third road game in 4 games. They have Auburn on deck, and normally I would say, yeah, this is a major sandwich spot, and I do think it's at least a letdown spot after that win over Tennessee. Even though Alabama didn't cover, Georgia, is still a tournament team. I don't believe these teams have played otherwise this year. Auburn is a huge rival for Alabama, but the thing is that rivalry is pretty one-sided right now, and I think it probably means a bit more to Auburn. I mean, Auburn's fighting for their tournament lives here, man. They keep losing to inferior teams. Like, you can't do that. Like, Auburn absolutely needs to win at home, and then they might need to beat Alabama, too. But Alabama still might be looking ahead to that game because it is their primary rival. It's the Iron Bowl, whatever you want to call it. So I would lean to Georgia in this game. Georgia, I mean, they're pretty safe in their tournament as well. They're going to be in, assuming they don't totally mess up here. They can afford to lose this game and still be in the tournament, but I think they want to win it because it is their final home game. It's against Alabama. They just beat South Carolina in their last game. They only have Mississippi State on deck. I expect Georgia to show up, and in fact, I like Georgia in this game, like I said. Alabama's a 1.5-point favorite, 74% of the tickets, 67% of the cash on Alabama. I would take it with Georgia in that one. And I also do not disagree with an over in that game, even though the total is 179.5. Both of these teams are like probably at least top 20 in tempo. They both play really fast. They both have really good offenses, and they both pretty much stink on the defensive side. So this game looks like it does have over written all over it. Over written all over it. There you go. So over, I think, is a way to look in that game as well, even though I know the total is unbelievably high. But we've seen higher totals out there in Alabama games. Fox Sports 1 at 7 p.m. Oh, this is one of my best bets. Let's go. Yeah. We are going to jump in and take the 10 points with TCU at Texas Tech. Number 10 ranked Texas Tech on Fox Sports 1. First of all, TCU, they're a bubble team right now, man. So I think you're going to get motivation out of TCU. Plus, I think they feel like they're little brothers in the state of Texas to Texas Tech. I think you're going to get an effort out of TCU here, man, and that's what you want as an underdog. You want to make sure you're going to get a big effort. They've not played each other this year. TCU's coming off a game where it was a close call kind of at Kansas State. They kind of pulled away at the end of that game. Wasn't a big win or anything, but it continues their momentum. I know this is a road game here, but I think this is a monster game for TCU because if they get it, I think they're probably pretty much locking up a tournament spot for themselves if they happen to get this win. I'm not going to say they're going to win the game, but I think they're going to give you an effort, and I think they have a decent chance to hang around in this game. Meanwhile, Texas Tech, the whole talk was, well, Texas Tech hasn't beaten anybody after JT Toppin went down, who was their best player. He went down in the Arizona State game. That was a win I gave out on the show because I thought it was a major letdown spot after Texas Tech upset Arizona, and Arizona was in a hangover spot in that game because they had taken their first loss of the season in the game before that. So you see how the situations kind of come into play, and then they set up another situation for you in the next game if you happen to be right. Now, Texas Tech lost more than the Arizona State game. They lost their best player in the game, Toppin. They came out of that game and they won 2 games anyway against Kansas State and Cincinnati. Actually a pretty impressive win because Cincinnati is actually not a bad team. They're actually really good defensively. But the whole talk was, well, Texas Tech still hasn't really been able to, like, they haven't beaten anybody elite or whatever. And then what did they do? Well, they go into Iowa State and they beat them by 9 on the road where it's really difficult to win at Ames, Iowa. And they won that game outright without Toppin. And I think that was kind of like the new Texas Tech legitimizer game. Like I talk about the legitimizer where that's like when a team kind of announces themselves like, hey, we are actually for real. We're legit. We just finally beat a legit team. I think this is like a re-legitimizer because obviously people thought Texas Tech was legit already. I mean, they beat Arizona on the road. But with Toppin down, they had not beaten anybody legitimate yet. And now they did in a huge way on the road. And even though this is going to be their final home game, I think this is a major letdown spot here, man. Yeah, I like TCU here. And TCU, believe it or not, actually has the slightly better defense here. And they're getting points, so I like that. TCU, they're not very good on offense, but they're a good defense. They're well coached. Jamie Dixon's still there. They're a solid team. And Texas Tech does have BYU on deck, which I don't know how big of a deal that is. They beat BYU once already, but BYU has been ranked all year. They are a team with a good record still. So, yeah, we're going to do it. TCU. Texas Tech is up to a 10-point favorite, 69% of the tickets, 68% of the cash on them. It looks like the market is seemingly agreeing with me on that, although I did see a lot of the money on the TCU side earlier. But let's get, the best number that we can on this. According to KenPom, TCU, they're sort of in the mid-range of the luck index. They're a top 25 defensive team. They do play a mid-tempo, whereas Texas Tech will try to slow the game down more. Texas Tech is a top 10 offense, and they're slightly outside of the top 25 on defense. They're a little bit more lucky than TCU, close to the top 100 in luck. And even if they slow the game down a bit, I think that's probably okay because a slow-paced game means fewer points, and we're asking the underdog to cover a double-digit spread here. The total's not very high in the 140s, so TCU is my first play there. All right. I got to move that up. I have these out of order here. Okay. Next up, Wake Forest at number 13, Virginia, 7 p.m. on ACC Network. This game, Wake Forest, you got to figure you'll probably get an effort out of them. They're coming off a pretty easy win against Syracuse. Syracuse is no good. This will be a big game for Wake, I think, getting to try to step up and play a ranked team, although they haven't exactly done great in ranked matchups. They've lost like all of them this year, but they had some success against North Carolina earlier this year and played them close. I don't love the spot for Virginia because Virginia just lost a long win streak. They'd won probably 9 games in a row or something. I talk about that. When a team loses a long win streak, especially when it's a game they're going to get up for, like mentally, a lot of times it'll hang them over to the next game. And it's even worse if the game was really hard fought and really close, although this wasn't. They got blown out by Duke. But still, that was a game they got up for. It was a hyped game. They got a reality check, and they have their rival Virginia Tech on deck, and that is their final home game. So they might even be looking ahead to that. So I don't like Virginia in this game. I would lean to Wake Forest here. Virginia is a 14-point favorite, and they play slow, so asking them to cover a huge number like this, not really something that's very much in my repertoire. 87% of the tickets, 95% of the cash on Virginia. They dropped from 14.5 to 14. I think they will be a public side. Total is in the 140s, so it's not high. I don't know. Playing on a team that's that public is not really necessarily in my repertoire either. So I lean Wake plus the points. Not on my card or anything. ESPN, 7 p.m. Clemson is at number 17, North Carolina. Clemson is coming off a nice win, man. They ended a 4-game losing streak with a win over Louisville, but that was a big win. So they are coming off a big game against a ranked team. Now, are they going to overlook North Carolina, though? I doubt it. I think they're still going to show up for this game. This is still a big game. For North Carolina, they're coming off a game that wasn't that great against Virginia Tech where they pushed the number. I'm pissed about it because I had Virginia Tech in that one. That was one of my plays. Part of my handicap was that I thought North Carolina might look ahead to Clemson here, but they also might be looking ahead to Duke, man, even though they beat Duke earlier this year. That's obviously a massive game. Their biggest games of the year are always the games against Duke, you know. It's a massive rivalry and whatever. So will North Carolina actually overlook Clemson at all here? I don't know, man. That is the question. This is a difficult handicap because you have one team kind of in a letdown, although I don't think they really will be because it's a big game for Clemson here. 2 big games in a row. On the other side, you have North Carolina potentially looking ahead. The market read is pointing towards Clemson. Looking at the numbers here, North Carolina is a 3.5-point favorite. 75% of the tickets, 53% of the cash on them. So the money looks like it is fading a public North Carolina side here. And I think the public will look at that and think it's a pretty low number to lay. Oh, I get a ranked North Carolina team laying very few points against an unranked Clemson team. It looks pretty easy to play North Carolina there. But again, the odds makers are telling you there's not much separating those two teams. KenPom has got North Carolina 28th and Clemson 36th. So they're not separated by too much there. And the odds makers are concurring with that. All right. 7 p.m. Peacock, we have Georgetown at number 18, St. John's. Georgetown has lost a bunch of games in a row, 6 games in a row. They're playing a third road game in 4 games, which is not that easy either, but this is probably going to be a step-up game for them. This is their biggest remaining game on the schedule right now, at least until they maybe do something in the conference tournament. But Georgetown lost at home to St. John's by double digits already. I think you're going to get an effort out of them in this game. It's a pretty big game for them. St. John's just beat Villanova, and they beat them down. They hammered them, man. That was a big win for St. John's. Villanova is a tournament team, and beating them by 32 was just crazy. St. John's, after a horrible game against UConn, they bounced back in a big way, and I wasn't sure that they were going to have that good of a game against Villanova because I was still thinking, well, they lost a huge win streak. You know, they'd already beaten Villanova once. I was thinking Villanova was going to give a better effort there. Nope. St. John's, most of the handicap really should have been about how they had a horrible, horrible game against UConn. And Rick Pitino must have given them, you know, the motivational speech.
Yeah, inside, I want to kill myself.
Which was probably something like that. And they got the job done, man. Yeah, they killed Villanova, and they do have an interesting game to finish the season against Seton Hall, who they didn't beat by much at home earlier this year. Seton Hall is not a horrible team, and they're sort of a tournament bubble team right now, so there is the potential that St. John's doesn't take Georgetown seriously here, and again, they already beat them on the road. I know this is St. John's final home game, but it's kind of surrounded by bigger games, so I would lean to Georgetown plus the points in this one. I know they're going to be getting a lot of points here. They're going to be a double-digit dog. Yeah, St. John's is a 16.5-point favorite. 87% of the tickets, 88% of the cash. I wouldn't really look into those percentages much there, but yeah, I think, by the way, the percentages are really coming in on Virginia now, but I just don't really see that. Anyway, and it's looking better for me for the TCU play right now, too. But yeah, I lean to Georgetown in that one, but it's not a play for me. Toledo is at now number 19, Miami, Ohio. Hey, KenPom, is Miami, Ohio the 19th best team in the country? Where do you have Miami, Ohio, KenPom? Oh, 86th. Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah, this is the most overrated team that we've ever seen, dude. Miami, Ohio moves up multiple more ranking spots because they almost lost to Western Michigan. I mean, come on, man. This is getting just beyond absurd at this point. We know that Miami, Ohio has a target on their back, and they keep winning by the skin of their ass. I'm going to start using that as a phrase instead of skin of your teeth. Teeth don't have skin. Toledo is coming off a nice win, though, against Ohio, which I believe must have been an upset. They just went to Ohio and won on the road. It was a very mild upset, though. But you know they're not going to overlook Miami, Ohio, man. This is a big game. Both of these teams are Ohio teams. It'll be a big game. Miami, Ohio, by the way, already beat Toledo by 14 at Toledo. So I think you are going to get an effort out of Toledo here, man. This will be basically their biggest game of the season. For Miami, Ohio, I think it's just kind of another whatever game. And people are kind of pointing to this Ohio game they have on the road as, oh, my God, they might lose their season finale. I don't know, but they're not going to be like a massive favorite in that game, I don't think. In this game, they're a fairly big favorite, and Miami, Ohio is coming off almost losing, and you know I talk about that when you have like a double-digit favorite that almost loses. A lot of times they will show up with focus after they get a scare like that, and it is their final home game. So I think you will get focus out of Miami, Ohio here, even though, yeah, they did beat Toledo already, handily on the road. But are you going to get enough focus that they're going to win by margin here? I would say I would still lean to Toledo plus the points here. I mean, you're not getting any value on Miami, Ohio, man. I mean, they're the most overhyped team that we've ever seen. 83% of the tickets and only 54% of the cash on Miami, Ohio. 8.5 is the number right now, up from 7. I would still lean towards taking the points, but it's not on my card, and I have not faded Miami, Ohio this entire season, I don't think. So, eventually there's going to be a spot to do it, and it's probably going to be in the tournament or maybe in the conference tournament. We'll see. All right, these Patriot League games I'll talk about at the end because that's the conference tournament. George Mason of VCU gets a TV game, CBS Sports, 7 p.m. Interesting game here. George Mason just ended a 4-game losing streak. They beat a struggling St. Bonaventure team. George Mason was really hot to start the season, and then they had a really bad losing stretch recently, which they just broke. And I've been saying George Mason's not as good as they looked early in the season. They're probably not as bad as they looked in some of these losses, though. They're probably going to give you an effort against VCU, but they did already beat VCU once at home, 86-80. So there is a little bit of a revenge motive for VCU. Mason does have St. Louis on deck in their final home game, and that is a big game, but even though they beat VCU, I don't totally see them overlooking VCU. It's just that VCU is the better team. VCU just beat Fordham. That's an easy win. And now this is their final home game. And it's against the team they lost to. So I do think VCU will show up for this because when you have 3 conference losses, you remember who beat you, man. One of them was, both of their other ones were against St. Louis. So the only team that beat them in conference play besides St. Louis was George Mason. So I think VCU does remember that. And the public is going to look at this game and think, what is going on with this number? VCU is a double-digit favorite here, but the teams have the same overall record. VCU does have a better conference record, but the odds makers are telling you VCU is the way better team here. And the fact that they lost the other game to George Mason when they were actually probably a favorite in that game. Let me see. Only 1.5, though. So I guess you could argue that based on that, they're 1.5 on the road. The fact they're 11.5 at home does seem big, but I would probably lean to laying the points in this one, man. They're up from 11 to 11.5. I mean, things have to adjust as the season goes on and whatever. George Mason looks slightly public, 54% of the tickets, 84% of the cash on VCU. Yeah, I agree with that market read. I would lean to VCU slightly there. All right. We have, Oklahoma State at UCF. I guess I can mention this game because UCF will be in the tournament. highly likely at this point, at least. Oklahoma State has not been playing well. They've lost whatever this is, 7 of their last 8 games, I think is what that is. 6 of their last 7. They just got blown out by Cincinnati. Now, they do have Houston on deck, but I think when you're not playing well, you probably do want to you probably do want to show some effort in a game here. Although Oklahoma State already beat UCF at Oklahoma State earlier this year, which I think was one of my wins on the show, because UCF had pulled off a huge win against Kansas the game prior to that. UCF is coming off an ugly loss, though, at home against Baylor. So, I think they might show up here as well. This is their final home game. They did lose on the road to Oklahoma State already. UCF is still playing for their tournament. They probably know they're a bubble team, so for that reason, they're probably still going to show up, whereas Oklahoma State is pretty much out of it now. Central Florida is an 8.5-point favorite, which is kind of weird because I think Oklahoma State was like a 2.5-point favorite in that game when they were at home. So line value-wise, I don't think there's a whole lot there with UCF, and I don't think they're as good as people think they are. But 89% of the tickets, 95% of the cash on them. The line has moved up to 8.5. It's a high total. I think you're probably going to get a lot of points in this game. I think both teams do play fast and whatever. I guess I would lean to laying the points in that one, but it's a tough call in that one. The next game, True TV, Seton Hall at Xavier. This is not a tough call for me. This is going to be a best bet. This might be my favorite one. We have a mega sandwich spot here. We're going to play Xavier plus 1.5 against Seton Hall here. The money looks like it's all over this. Seton Hall might be a 1-point favorite. Now, plus 1 should be all right, too, here. 75% of the tickets are on Seton Hall. 88% of the cash on Xavier. The market read is all over Xavier here. And, of course, I agree with it. Seton Hall will be a public side, but look at the spot that they're in. And they're going to get a lot of credit for what they looked like against Connecticut on Saturday. I watched the end of that game. Seton Hall put in a huge effort at UConn, man. It was, I think, at Storrs, Connecticut, too. So it was in UConn's on-campus arena where things get really, really rowdy. Seton Hall almost pulled off the upset, man. That would have been a massive, massive upset, a massive win for Seton Hall. And, I talk about that when you have a team that puts together a monster effort like that just to fall short. A lot of times they have a flat effort in the next game. Seton Hall has to now go to Cincinnati to play this game against Xavier, who they already beat by almost 20 points. They won by 18 back at home earlier in the season, so they might not take Xavier very seriously at all. Xavier down to the bottom of the standings. And look who Seton Hall has to finish the season at home, where it would be a game that if they win, it could potentially, go on their resume and really help their tournament hopes. They play St. John's, man, on deck in their final home game 3 days from now. This is a monster sandwich spot, dude. I love Xavier in the spot here. Xavier's also 1 game below 500, which I think is a little bit of an extra motivator as well, which I didn't realize that when I was looking at this earlier. I would play this anyway, obviously, but that's just a little extra motivator because you don't want to be a losing team, right? So they're 1 game away from not being a losing team anymore. This is Xavier's final home game. And, I talk about how that is a little bit of an extra motivator usually. You want to get up and, give your fans, a send-off, give them a win. If you have any seniors on your team, although I know it's less and less likely that you do at this point, but even if they're transfers and whatever, you want to give those guys a send-off because, for every player on the team, because a lot of players might transfer out and whatever too, Like for a lot of guys, this is going to be their last game they get to play for the home team on this floor. So it's a big deal in your last home game still. And they just beat Georgetown to break a 3-game losing streak. So I like that too. The last time they broke a losing streak, they played pretty well in the next game against Villanova, which was on this floor as well. So I think Xavier does have some positive momentum now that they broke that losing streak. I love Xavier in this one. This might be the best play on the whole card today. Xavier is the play there. All right. Ball State at Western Michigan. Now, if you listen to me, you know that I would say, well, you'd want to fade Western Michigan off of what they just did, right? They almost upset Miami, Ohio. That was a monster game for them. And they have Kent State on deck. That's a huge game as well. Kent State, I believe, is locked into third place in the MAC now. So Kent State, I think they might be playing today, by the way. So keep that in mind. Kent State cannot change their seeding at this point. They're locked into the 3 seed, in the MAC. So Kent State might start looking ahead to the conference tournament. So I would not want to play on Kent State in their final 2 games, but maybe in their final home game, which is next. But today, I would not do it if they're playing today. Well, let me just look real quick. Are they? They are, but I haven't talked about that game. They're playing Northern Illinois. Yeah, I would not lay the points with Kent State in that one. But I'm going to tell you why you should not play against Western Michigan here. Western Michigan, it's their final home game, so there is that. And I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that you should never play against a team in their final home game. Like we did it last night with the fate of New Orleans. That was in their final home game. There are certain situations where you should do it. And you might be saying, but Toad, this looks like one. They're coming off a massive game against Miami, Ohio. They took them right to the wire, almost won the game, which would have been monumental. And they have Kent State on deck. They're playing this awful Ball State team. Why wouldn't we want to fade Western Michigan here? Well, I'll tell you. The main reason is the MAC drops their bottom 4 teams from the MAC tournament. So Western Michigan is in danger of missing the conference tournament, and that is why I would not want to fade them here, because they actually still have a reason to show up for that reason. That they have there's a pretty decent chance they're not going to make the MAC tournament, as they are in third to last place right now. And the last 4 teams, I'm pretty sure, don't make it. So they would really need to do something to claw their way out of that. And in fact, Ball State is 1 game ahead of them. So the team that they really need to beat to make sure that they make the MAC tournament is, in fact, Ball State. And that's who they're playing in this game. So I do not think this is going to be an unmotivated spot for them. So there you go. Yeah. You find these like handicapping angles, and then it's like, oh, this looks like a great spot to fade Western Michigan. Then you dig into it, and when you get to these last, regular season games, these other like motivational angles can come into play. You could be like, whoa, what the fuck? That's why you listen to me probably, because I'm identifying all these angles, man. Hopefully I'm not missing any. Western Michigan, in fact, is up to a 3.5-point favorite. Now, would I play Western Michigan in this game? Absolutely not. I would still probably lean to Ball State in this game, because Ball State they're in danger of missing the conference tournament as well. They're still going to show up for this game. So I probably would still take the points with Ball State, because it is still a bad spot for Western Michigan. But there are some reasons to not be, full bore, like unloading on it. You know what I mean? All right. What else do we have here? Games that I might want to talk about here. UNC Wilmington at Elon is interesting. UNC Wilmington just had a huge game against Charleston. They lost the game. Charleston is now within a half game of UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington now split the season series with them. I don't know who has the tiebreaker there. UNC Wilmington had 6 wins in a row, and then they lost that game to Charleston. That was a huge game, man, and they blew the lead in that game. And it was their final home game. That could definitely hang them over into this game against an Elon team that they already beat by double digits. So I don't like UNC Wilmington here, but I believe there is still a chance that they don't get the 1 seed here. So I guess they are still kind of playing for that, to hang on to the 1 seed, which I don't know how much of a motivator that really is, because the 1 and 2 seeds get like kind of a similar setup in the conference tournament. But I guess when you're the 1 seed, theoretically, at least you get a better path in the tournament. It depends on where the teams get seeded, but I think you do want the 1 seed here, because Hofstra, I think, is Hofstra might be locked into the 3 seed, and if they are, you want to avoid Hofstra for as long as possible in this tournament, man. And if you're the 2 seed, you're going to run into Hofstra earlier. So I think it does matter. Like, you probably do want the 1 seed, because, look at who the 4 seeds might be. It might be Drexel and Monmouth. You'd much rather play one of those teams than Hofstra. So, Elon is on a 3-game losing streak, though, and this is their final home game. And like I said, it's revenge for them. I would still lean to Elon in this one. Looks like the money's coming in on UNCW, though. 57% of the tickets, 96% of the cash on them. They're a 5-point favorite, but yeah, I would still lean to Elon, though, personally. But is it on my card? No. No, it is not. Now, let me look at the Colonial real quick here because I think I want to make sure that I was right. Actually, I'm wrong. UNC Wilmington's already locked into the 1 seed, so my mistake. So, yeah, I would definitely not play UNC Wilmington there. I don't know what's going on with the money there, man. They're coming off a difficult game, and they're already locked into the 1 seed. Charleston is actually locked into the 2. So I guess UNC Wilmington does have the tiebreaker against them, and then Hofstra is locked into the 3, and the bottom 2 teams are locked into their seeds as well. NCAA and Northeastern. Every team in this conference makes the conference tournament. So remember that. Remember what I just said. When you're looking at the games tonight, the top 3 teams and bottom 2 teams. None of them can change their seeding at this point in the conference tournament. So, yeah, there's no way that I would lay it with UNC Wilmington in that one. It would be Elon for sure or pass on that game. Elon does have some seeding to still play for. But like what I just said, Hofstra is already the 3 seed, so they don't really have any motivators there in their game against Drexel. And then Northeastern's already locked into their seed as well, but they are playing their – Hofstra and Northeastern are still playing their final home games, though, I think. So, maybe that's a motivator. For Northeastern, they've been playing so badly recently that they might actually have some motivators to show up there, and I think they lost to Monmouth already. So, I'm just rambling, but stuff to keep in mind. ESPNU at 7 p.m. Missouri is at Oklahoma. These 2 teams did play once, and Missouri barely got by 1 at home. So they might actually take Oklahoma seriously because of that, because when a team is a favorite at home by a substantial margin and they almost lose the game, they might take that team more seriously the next time. They're only a 4.5-point favorite, but I think they consider themselves to be significantly better than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma took them into overtime. So they might remember that and take them seriously here, man. Missouri, if they were going to lapse in a game, I thought it was going to be after they beat Tennessee, which was a winner for me on the show, by the way. They went to Mississippi State, and they still got an easy win against Mississippi State. Now, I guess one problem is they do have Arkansas on deck, and that is a big game. Arkansas beat them, and they gave Arkansas like a decent game on the road against Arkansas. So they might be looking ahead to that. It's their final home game in a big game against a ranked team. But there is the chance they take Oklahoma seriously here. Missouri, they really don't want to lose, although they're pretty secure in their tournament spot now. I mean, they're in 4th place in the SEC now, and they're above a couple of other tournament teams, above multiple. So I think they are pretty secure in their tournament spot. This is Oklahoma's final home game, though, and they're on a little 2-game win streak here. They just beat LSU, which is not a big deal. So I do think the spot is still better for Oklahoma here. That's the way I would lean here. Yeah, and it looks like Oklahoma is they're actually a favorite. So the public is going to look at that and think it looks so easy. Oh, my God, Missouri has the better record. They're going to be a tournament team. They already beat Oklahoma once, although only by 1. It looks really, really easy to play Missouri as an underdog here, right? They're one of those public underdogs, so I would lean towards Oklahoma there. Moneyline is probably what I would do. 68% of the tickets, 58% of the cash on Missouri. Oklahoma's moved up from a 1-point favorite to a 2-point favorite. I do lean to Oklahoma in that one. Next up is my final college basketball play of the day. ESPN2 at 7 p.m. We have Kentucky at Texas A&M. You might know what I'm doing with this. Because I think we're going to have a motivated bubble team, and I know that I always talk about bubble teams a lot of times are overvalued. Like, I don't really want to lay points with a bubble team, but when we're asking Texas A&M to just win the game, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to recommend Moneyline on this. I mean, I'm not going to beat you up if you go -1 or whatever, -1.5. But college basketball, long-term, it's more advantageous with these really low favorite, like small favorites, 1, 1.5, and 2. It actually is better plus EV long-term if you find a money line price on it, because usually there's some money line price in the market that's good. I might go up to about -120 on the money line on this, into the 120s. We're going to fade Kentucky in this one. Kentucky is more secure in their tournament spot now, especially after they just got a nice win over Vandy. They just beat a tournament team, a team that was ranked. I know A&M is likely to be a tournament team as well, but That was a huge win for Kentucky, man. And now they're playing a third road game in 4 games. And look who they have on deck, man. They finished the regular season with their final home game against Florida, who they lost to already on the road. And they actually played decently against Florida. And in the golden Florida era, Todd Golden, Kentucky had won all 4 games against Florida until this year. So I think they're going to be looking ahead to that game. I think it's in-season revenge. It's a huge game against Florida. I think what we have is a sandwich here, man. We have a sandwich here, folks. And Texas A&M is probably not going to be thrilled about their result in their last game where they lost at home to Texas as a favorite. Texas is a pretty solid team, though. Like, that's not a horrible loss. Texas, as of right now, is in the tournament, and I think they absolutely should be. I think they will be at this point. A&M is... This is their final home game, man, so that's a little bit of an extra motivator as well. They get to play Kentucky, who's a big-name team, like basically a blue-blood program. Big deal for Texas A&M here, man. We're going to do it. We're going to go with A&M in this one. Looking at KenPom real quick here. I know Texas A&M, they're actually not bad. Like, they're a pretty balanced team. They're top 40 overall in KenPom. They're a pretty unlucky team. They do play fast, which I don't love, but they're actually a little bit better defensively than offensively, so I don't have a problem with that. And the fact that they're pretty unlucky. Kentucky is the luckier team. Lucky Kentucky. They're not too lucky, but they're luckier, according to KenPom. They play a little bit slower typically, and they're just a little bit better on both sides of the ball, not by a lot. And it is a road game here, so... yeah, I think it's a competitive matchup, and I think the spot is a lot better for A&M, so that's what we're doing here, man. And again, they're a little bit underrated, according to KenPom now, whereas earlier in the season they were way overrated, but now I think we've reached a point where they're underrated. And Kentucky has flipped the other way. I thought they were pretty underrated early in the season, but now I think they might be maybe slightly overrated, even though they're actually not ranked, and KenPom does have them as the top 25. But yes, I'm all about the spot, really, though. KenPom doesn't really, deter me here. Like, I don't see anything in KenPom that's, like, jumping out at me, like, screaming at me, like, no, don't do this. So, that's what we're doing. As far as the Xavier game, by the way, Xavier, I mean, they're not a great team. We know that. I didn't talk about their KenPom numbers. They're, like, a mid-tier luck team. They play really fast. And they're playing, who are they playing? They're playing Seton Hall, right? Seton Hall plays really slow. So, yeah, I know Seton Hall is the better offensive team, or excuse me, the better defensive team, of course. Xavier is the better offensive team. Seton Hall is a slow-paced defensive team, and they can't score. But you're asking Seton Hall to win on the road by multiple points, so that's really where it comes in, man. So I'm fine with playing Xavier there. Seton Hall is not exactly great. They're outside of the top 50 in KenPom, even though I know Xavier's barely in the top 100. Seton Hall is the unluckier team, though. So KenPom, yeah, we are fading his luck disparity in that game, but I think it's warranted based on the and KenPom has Seton Hall winning that game by exactly 1. So I mean, everything's pretty much right in line with that one. So it's a horrible spot for Seton Hall, though. All right, we have one Horizon League tournament game that I will talk about in a minute. We have West Virginia at Kansas State. Usually I only talk about the TV games, but West Virginia, they could be considered a bubble team maybe, but they had lost 3 in a row, but they did just get a big win over BYU. Could be a letdown spot now going on the road to Kansas State. They already beat Kansas State at home by 5. Kansas State is pretty much just playing out the stretch. They will be in the conference tournament. I think every team makes the conference tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But Kansas State does have their huge rivalry game against Kansas on deck. But this is also their final home game, and they probably don't want to finish, they don't want to finish the season on a 5-game losing streak, because I don't think they're going to beat Kansas. Surprise. So this is their last chance at getting it. This is their last winnable game, so I would probably lean to Kansas State, but the money's all coming in on West Virginia. I don't really understand that. They're up from 1.5 to 3, I guess, because they're playing for their tournament lives, but is that a situation where you want to lay points on the road with an extreme slow-paced team like West Virginia? I don't think so. 65% of the tickets on Kansas State, 87% of the cash on West Virginia, though. But a lot of times when a team is considered a bubble team and they're a favorite like that, they're laying too many points, right? And they'll be overvalued in the market. So that's what we got going on there. I'm going to just make fun of Arkansas Pine Bluff briefly because they did just lose to Mississippi Valley State, who has 2 Division I wins, baby, and they're both by 1 point. It was a 14.5-point upset there. In Arkansas Pine Bluff's final home game, great senior night for them. I just find that to be hilarious. Maybe they'll bounce back against Jackson State. I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of funny. Kent State, like I said, I would not play them at all because they are already locked into the 3 seed in the max. They really don't have anything to play for here. They're on the road. They have their final home game next against Western Michigan. They're coming off a game where they got blown out by Akron, but that's a big rivalry game, so they might be feeling deflated off of that. And they already beat Northern Illinois, but they only beat them by 4. So I guess there is a chance they take Northern Illinois seriously because they almost lost to them. And nobody really wants to lose a game, but it's just that I don't know if the motivation's really going to be there. But Northern Illinois looks like a public home underdog, which is pretty shocking to me. I don't know what public bettor is playing them in this game. 85% of the tickets and 58% of the cash on Northern Illinois. So that kind of screams to me that you should not play Northern Illinois here. But there's no way that I would lay 9.5 on the road with Kent State in a game where their motivation is extremely questionable. All right, and then we have another Sun Belt game that I'm going to talk about in a second. Peacock, 9 p.m., Oregon at Illinois. Oregon, they just had a loss to Northwestern where they almost pulled off the upset at Northwestern. So even though, they'll get up for a game against Illinois probably because it is a huge game, I just don't know what they're going to have left in the tank after almost pulling off an upset of Northwestern. This is not a good Oregon team, man. This is 3 road games and 4 games, playing in an unfamiliar venue. And this Illinois team, they got 7 losses, but they're a lot better than that record looks, man. They had not lost in regulation since their loss to Nebraska. Until their most recent game, their last regulation loss was to Nebraska way early in conference play, man, because their losses to Michigan State, Wisconsin, and UCLA were all overtime losses. And then they did just take a loss to Michigan, but that's Michigan. They're absolutely elite. But this is now Illinois' final home game. I know they're coming off a big game, but I think they will show up for this one, man. I think Illinois at this point is a lot better than people think. They're a 7-loss team, but KenPom has them as a top 5 team in the country. Now, the problem is their defense is bad, but Oregon's just a bad team, man. I think you will get an effort out of Illinois here. I probably would lean to laying it with Illinois. They're up from 17.5 to 18.5, and they do have an elite offense. Like, Illinois has a historically efficient offense. They're number 1 in the country, but, based on a lot of, historical metrics, they're the best offense in college basketball history, believe it or not. 88% of the tickets, 95% of the cash on Illinois. I wouldn't really disagree with that, even though they're a public side. I would probably lay it in that one with Illinois, but not going to be one that I want anything to do with, really. Fox Sports 1 at 9 p.m. We have number 14 Kansas at Arizona State. Kansas just took a blowout loss to Arizona. I gave that out as a winner on the show with Arizona. Kansas had a huge win over Houston the game before that. Also a winner on the show for me, so I've had a good gauge on this Kansas team. Now they're going to Arizona State. This is a 4th road game in 6 games, which is not that easy. That could have been kind of a reality check game maybe against Arizona. I don't know. I really don't know how much attention they're going to pay to Arizona State. And then they got Kansas State on deck in their rivalry game to finish the season. Even though Kansas State's having a bad season, that still might be a bigger game than this one. Arizona State they're staying at home. They just beat Utah. They ended a 2-game losing streak. They played better than I expected them to against Utah. Now their final home game, they get to host Kansas on senior night, if you want to call it that. I would probably take the points with Arizona State in this one. Kansas is a more defensive team, too, and you're asking them to lay a bunch of points on the road. Don't love that. Kansas, during this Arizona trip, the game they really got up for was the Arizona game, and they fell short, and now they got to play Arizona State. Yeah, I don't know. 83% of the tickets, 76% of the cash on Kansas. I know they're coming off a blowout loss, but I still think it's a bad spot for them here. Arizona State plus the points would be my lean there. But the number did drop off that key number of 7 down to 6 or 6.5 maybe. Number 24, Vandy at Ole Miss. Vandy coming off a loss to Kentucky. Pretty bad. Well, I mean, Kentucky's, going to be a tournament team. They're not a bad team, so it's not a bad loss, but they did lose by 14 there. Maybe they will show up, but they do have a huge revenge game on deck against Tennessee, man, to finish the season. Tennessee beat them in Vandy, and Vandy has to play them next on the road. That is not that easy, and they're playing an Ole Miss team they already beat, but they only beat them by 3 at home, so they did not cover in that game. So sometimes when you had a close call, you will actually take that team seriously. So there are some reasons why you might get an effort out of Vandy here. Ole Miss, I don't love the spot for them either because they just pulled off a big upset against Auburn. Although maybe it doesn't feel like a big upset because Auburn is near the bottom of the standings here. Again, I think Auburn should be a tournament team, man. They got to get these wins, though. Dude, I just don't know how, I don't know how Auburn lost to Ole Miss, and they lost to, Mississippi State. I think they lost to Oklahoma. I just don't get it, man. Losing one of those 3 is probably acceptable, and then they'd probably be in the tournament. I mean, Auburn has faced one of the most difficult schedules in the country. They have 16 quad 1 games. It's totally insane, but the fact that they lost that game as a big favorite, I don't know. Now, I could see it going 2 ways here for Ole Miss. They're coming off a big upset, so you could say this is a letdown spot because they were 9.5-point dogs in that game. But because Auburn's record sucks, maybe that doesn't feel like a big upset. And Ole Miss just broke a really long losing streak that they had. And I talk about that. And when you've lost 11 games in a row or whatever, and you finally break that losing momentum, a lot of times that helps. And you have new momentum here. And they're hosting Vandy here in their final home game. Or no, it's not their final home game. My mistake. They play South Carolina next at home. But still, hosting Vandy, I still think you might get an effort out of Ole Miss for that reason. This is a very difficult handicap. Vandy is a 6.5-point favorite. They are the public side, 89% of the tickets, only 81% of the cash. I guess I would lean to Ole Miss plus the points there. Plus, I think in the Beard era for them or whatever, Chris Beard, their coach, they do slow the game down, whatever. So I guess that's how I would lean in that game. But, yeah, it's not a game that I love by any means. All right. What other games are we going to talk about here? I'm trying to talk about every ranked team, every tournament team, and every TV game. ESPN 2, 9 p.m. is BYU at Cincinnati. BYU on a 2-game skid here. They're not playing that well without Saunders. After losing pretty badly to West Virginia, having a bad loss, I should say, to West Virginia, maybe you will show up for a game against Cincinnati. They haven't played Cincinnati yet this year. Kind of an unfamiliar venue for them, though. BYU does have Texas Tech on deck, which is a big game and a revenge game. But, at this point, BYU, they're going to make the tournament, but I think they do want some positivity here, and they will want to break this losing momentum. They have Cincinnati just annihilated Oklahoma State. But now this is their final home game, and they get to host a tournament team, BYU. So I don't really see Cincinnati overlooking this BYU team. And Cincinnati is the much better defense out of the 2 teams. And you know me, I like defense, especially if you're going to be getting points at home, which you're not, actually. Cincinnati is favored, believe it or not. So I think the public's going to look at this and think, this looks so easy to play BYU. So even though I think there are some reasons why they might be motivated here, it's a big game for Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is a bubble team right now for the tournament. They're my last team in my next 4 out right now. They have good metrics, man, just because their defense keeps them in games. But people are going to look at this and see, they don't like that Cincinnati's an ugly team that can't score. BYU scores a lot. BYU has the way better record, and people are going to think I'm getting points with BYU. That looks amazing, right? And it's almost one of those unranked home favorite deals here. It's just that BYU just dropped out of the rankings. But, yeah, all that, factoring all of that in, I would lean to Cincinnati here. I'd try to find a good money line on this probably. Unfortunately, they've gone up from 1 to 2.5 here. They got 80% of the cash on them, 58% of the tickets on BYU. But, yeah, the lean for me would be Cincinnati in that one, but it's not one of my strongest ones. San Diego State at Boise State on CBS Sports Network. San Diego State just took a loss to New Mexico, but they're playing a 3rd road game in 4 games, and they're coming off 2 big games, close. They beat Utah State, and they had a close game against New Mexico. So 2 huge games there. Now they're playing Boise. I don't know, man. I think Boise, San Diego State's got to show some effort, though, because they're a bubble team right now. So if they want to make the tournament, they got to do something, although they have a chance to make noise in the Mountain West tournament as well. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Boise, they're kind of sneaking up in conference play here. Now, is San Diego State going to overlook them? I don't know, because San Diego State almost lost at home to Boise really early in conference play. Boise took them to multiple overtimes, I think, at home. It was a crazy game. So San Diego State was a pretty big favorite in that game. I think when you're a pretty big home favorite and you almost lose the game, sometimes you do remember that. So maybe there are reasons why they will show up here. Boise's just kind of coasting. They just got 3 wins against the dregs of the Mountain West. But now this is their final home game, and it is revenge, technically, against San Diego State. So I don't see Boise overlooking this. I think I would have to probably lean to Boise here. They're -1. It would be a money line play if you wanted them. But I think the public's going to look at this and think it looks pretty easy to take a point with San Diego State because they have the better record. They've had the better season, whatever. The money looks like it's on San Diego State for now. 62% of the tickets, 88% of the cash on them. But I don't know. I think the spot looks a little bit better for Boise, and I think it looks too easy to play San Diego State there. All right, Boston College at Virginia Tech on ESPNU, 9 p.m. This was close to making my card. Virginia Tech is coming off that huge game against North Carolina, but it wasn't that close in the end there. They were down 8 with a couple minutes to go. They covered for us, no, they didn't actually. They pushed, which was better than a loss. But I wish they had taken North Carolina to the wire, man, because then I'd be saying this is a horrible, horrible spot for Virginia Tech. They have a huge game against Virginia on deck, and I think that, even though Virginia Tech is a bubble team and they really can't afford to lose to Boston College at home, they just can't do it. The question is, are they going to win by a huge margin here when they have this game surrounded by massive games? And that Virginia game up next is an opportunity. If they get that win, that will really bolster their resume. So they may be looking ahead to that for that reason too. I don't see them covering against BC here. And for BC, they're trying to avoid missing the ACC tournament. The bottom, I think 3 teams get bounced. They don't make the ACC tournament. So BC is in trouble right now with 2 games remaining. I think they could still get in, and they're usually in it. But BC just lost at Miami. I mean, that wasn't shocking. The difficult thing for BC is they're playing a 4th road game in 5 games, so they really get screwed by the schedule makers here. It's not going to be that easy for them there, but I would still lean to BC there. There are just some things I don't love about it, but the money is coming in on BC. Virginia Tech's an 11.5-point favorite, and the total is low, in the low 140s now. 67% of tickets on Virginia Tech, 97% of the cash on BC. Money all over BC, and I don't disagree with it. All right, ACC Network, Syracuse at Louisville. Syracuse just lost to Wake, 3 losses in a row, but Duke, UNC, I mean, those are expected losses, even though Duke absolutely pummeled them, but Duke is pummeling everybody right now. Now, this is a 3rd road game of 4 games for Syracuse, but they're making, the rounds here. They're down in the South, so the travel leg isn't that bad from Wake to Louisville. They might get up for Louisville. Louisville has just dropped from the rankings with that loss to Clemson. So maybe Louisville will be a little bit angry and play with some intensity. But the thing is, they just had 2 big games against North Carolina and Clemson, even though they did lose both as a favorite. They got Miami on deck as well. Miami is newly ranked. That is a big game too. This is Louisville's final home game, though, so maybe they will try to show up and bounce back. So I see conflicting indicators in this game, man. Louisville down from 15.5 to 12.5, which might mean that they have an injury there. I know their best player has been dealing with some injuries recently, which is, I don't know why I forget his name. It is Michael Brown Jr., however you pronounce his name. I don't know if that means he's out in this game or not. I don't know why they dropped to a 12.5-point favorite, though. 88% of the tickets, 91% of the cash on Louisville. I'd probably slightly lean towards taking the points with Syracuse, but not something I want anything to do with. We got SEC Network at 10 p.m. Auburn really needs to win this game against LSU. They are a decent-sized favorite here. LSU might show up. I mean, they just took a bad home loss to Oklahoma. I don't believe these teams have played otherwise this year, but you got to at least get an effort out of Auburn here. They got to at least win this game after a horrible home loss as a big favorite, I should say, a horrible home loss. And usually will get a bounce back from a team that has a bad home loss as a favorite like that. This is their final home game. I know they have Alabama on deck, and that is a major, major game, major rivalry game, but you got to think Auburn knows we cannot afford another loss whatsoever here. They got to get this win, man. They are a 9-point favorite, 9 with juice now. 88% of the tickets, 98% of the cash on them. I would probably lean towards laying it with Auburn in that one, but it's not anything that's going to make my card or anything like that. Plus, they could win without covering, and that would still be good enough for Auburn's resume for now. Number 9, Nebraska at UCLA. Nebraska, I don't think they're a top 10 team, man. They're 11th, though, according to KenPom. They are really good on defense, but their offense has some issues. They just beat USC on the road, but USC is in total turmoil right now. Baker Mazzara just got kicked off the team. That USC team, they're done. Like, most of the season, it looked like they were a tournament team, and now I think they're completely out. Maybe getting rid of Baker Mazzara will spark USC. I don't know. But Nebraska's coming off that win. They got to play UCLA, which is more difficult. And they do have a pretty big revenge game to finish the season against Iowa. So there is the potential maybe they overlook UCLA a little bit. And UCLA, they're still a bubble team. So I think you're going to get a better effort out of UCLA here, especially as a home underdog. And they just lost at Minnesota. That was a pretty ugly loss, man. And now I know it's a quick turnaround time, having to fly back to the Pacific Coast. So that's not great. So Nebraska actually does have a travel edge here where they're already out on the Pacific Coast. UCLA's flying back, but this is UCLA's final home game, coming off a terrible loss, dude. So I think I would have to lean to UCLA here. They're actually a pick-em at this point, but I think they're going to be motivated to win the game, man. Nebraska is very close to being settled in as a 3 seed, so the game means more to UCLA, I think, because there's still a potential they don't make the tournament. UCLA's flipped from a 2-point dog to a pick-em. 81% of tickets, 88% of the cash on Nebraska. Nebraska is a public side. I'll lean UCLA there. And then CBS Sports in the degenerate hours here, 11 p.m. Utah State is at UNLV. Utah State just beat Grand Canyon in revenge, but they almost lost as a home favorite. And I think Utah State is going to show up, not only because they almost lost to Grand Canyon, but for a second time, but because UNLV, believe it or not, went into Utah State and beat them earlier this year by 10 points. So this is a pretty big road revenge angle. Utah State was a big favorite in that game and lost. So I think this is a pretty major revenge spot for Utah State. Now, UNLV, I think they will give you an effort as well because, I mean, the top team in the conference is coming into your house, and it's your final home game. So I think you got to give an effort, but UNLV just put in a huge effort in their last game against Nevada, man, and that was a major, major game because that was not only a revenge game, but it's a rivalry between them and Nevada, so they're the little brother, basically, too. That was a pretty mega win for UNLV there, man. I watched the end of that game. It was an intense game, huge win. It went into overtime as well, so I actually lean to Utah State in this game, man. It's not going to make my card or anything like that because I see some conflicting factors, but I think the situational setup is better for Utah State. They're down from 8 to 7.5 here, but yeah, I think I would lay it with Utah State in that one. All right, I'm going to quickly take a break. I will return in a second. We're going to talk about conference tournaments, and we got to do NHL and NHL and NBA. There's a lot, man. Tuesday takes a lot out of me. Give me 1 second. Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight, it was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on. The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. All right, we're back. Mr. Pinsey saved me the other day when I came back after replaying the intro like that for the... I need like an intermission video, man. Maybe somebody can make me one. I don't know. It needs to be something different, but I forgot to put my mic back on the other day on Saturday, so on the huge college basketball show, and then I had to reiterate my thoughts on 3 games, including my big play on Arizona, but we were able to get it done. Anyway, let's talk about these conference tournament games, man. I don't have a play in any of these games, but it feels like March Madness now. It really does. So we do have the Sun Belt opening round games beginning 6 p.m. We have Georgia State against Louisiana. I have an opinion on some of these games, man. Georgia State, they played Louisiana once this year, and they wound up ahead of Louisiana in the standings. So this is the, what is this, the 12 versus 13 game or something like that in the tournament. Now, Louisiana is ahead of Georgia State in the standings. However, you will notice that Georgia State is actually the favorite, although they actually opened the underdog +1. They're now -1, 81% of the tickets, 85% of the cash. I agree with this move. I lean to Georgia State in this game. Now, people are going to look, and they're going to see that these teams played one time this year. I think they only played once. And Louisiana won the game by double digits at Louisiana. But if you dig into this box score, I think it was pretty misleading, man. Georgia State was actually a 1.5-point favorite. So think about that. Georgia State was a 1.5-point road favorite there. And now today they open as an underdog on a neutral floor. This game's going to be in Pensacola, Florida, I'm pretty sure. So I know it's closer. I guess it's closer to Louisiana. So I guess, the location's a little bit better for them. But Georgia State was a favorite in Louisiana, man. So, that should mean that they're a favorite by, a few points probably in this game, and they're not. So I think there is some line value. And if you look at this game, it was totally misleading. Yeah, Louisiana did out-rebound them, but look at the shooting percentages in this game. Louisiana shot 50% from the field, 50% from 3. Georgia State, 31% and 23%. I mean, those are some pretty major outliers that I think might swing in the other direction, although Georgia State did get to the line a ton, and they hit almost all of their free throws. So a lot of times I like to fade a free throw disparity like that the next matchup, but I think that the rest of what we saw there in that game was misleading. I think Georgia State is actually the better team, even though they lost that game. I like Georgia State in this one. KenPom does have Georgia State as the better team by 10 ranking spots. They're both outside the top 300. He does have Louisiana as the way luckier team, by the way. So luck index is pointing towards Georgia State here. Georgia State is the better defense. So sometimes in a game like this, the better defense is what wins out. That is Georgia State. Louisiana is going to try to slow the game way, way down, though. And Georgia State wants to go a little bit more up-tempo than that. So we'll see which tempo can win out. But I agree with the move there. I think Georgia State gets that game. Okay, and then the other Sun Belt game, I'm going to see. I don't know how I want to do this exactly, but I guess I'll do it conference by conference. There are only a couple of conferences in action today. So where's the other Sun Belt game? It's the 11-14 or whatever. It's UL Monroe and Old Dominion. Now, this game, people are going to look at these teams' records and they're going to think this line is crazy. Like, why would I lay 11.5 with an 11-20 Old Dominion team? Well, UL Monroe has 4 wins on the season, and they only have 1 win in the Sun Belt. So this is a very bad UL Monroe team. Old Dominion is actually pretty underrated, which I talked about not too long ago when I gave them out as a play. And I think they pushed for me not too long ago. But what you're going to notice, this is actually really hilarious. UL Monroe's only conference win was at Old Dominion. And I think people are going to see that and think, oh my God, if they can win at Old Dominion, that means they might be able to, they should be able to cover in this game, right? I think that's what the public is going to think. Like, Old Dominion can't be that good. They're in one of these opening round games. Their overall record still sucks. UL Monroe actually beat them at Old Dominion. Yeah, but obviously that was a complete fluke. If UL Monroe couldn't even win a conference game, and they did have some close conference games, I'll give them that. They played Troy to within 1 point. They only lost by 3 to Georgia Southern, although they're not that good, and lost by 4 to Coastal Carolina. Those games were all at home, though, by the way. Oh, no, they were all at home, so they were much better at home. Away from home, they've been awful, pretty much, except for the Old Dominion game for whatever reason. But if we look at what happened in this box score, UL Monroe dominated the rebounds. I mean, that is a little bit crazy. I don't really understand it. I don't get it, actually. Although Old Dominion did have more possessions in the game slightly. UL Monroe had a ton of free throw attempts in the game, so they did get to the line, or it looks like they did dominate the paint, but still, Old Dominion, they were a 14.5-point favorite in this game, and they lost outright. So you got to think they're going to have the adjustments to make here. Like, they're going to remember that, and they're going to show up with a better effort here. Like, obviously, I think Old Dominion's going to win this game. I would lean towards them covering as well. They're up from 10 to 11 here. UL Monroe is real bad. KenPom has Old Dominion actually at 243rd in the country, and they're very unlucky, according to him. They're in the bottom, 25 in his luck index almost. So this Old Dominion team is not that bad, and they're pretty balanced. They try to go fast. UL Monroe also plays fast, so I think that helps Old Dominion because you have 2 fast-paced teams, and Old Dominion, is the better of the 2. Although UL Monroe, by the way, is extremely unlucky as well, but they're in the bottom 12 or 13 in all of the country in KenPom, so they are significantly worse than Old Dominion, and they're one of the bottom 6 defenses in the entire country. So, yeah, I think Old Dominion should be able to get that thing done. They'll at least win the game. I would have to assume, but I would lean towards them covering as well. All right, and then we have the Patriot League is in action, and I think there is one Horizon League game as well. Patriot League, both games are at 7. These are the opening round games there. Holy Cross and Lafayette is the 10 versus 7 matchup, I think. So the winner of that game will play the 2 seed, which is Lehigh. Yeah, Lehigh's not good. Lafayette, I believe, beat Holy Cross both games this year. And you might think, well, that means it's double revenge. They might not take Holy Cross seriously. I don't know, man. They just beat Holy Cross on the road by 3, and they beat them at home by 19. But if you dig into those box scores, Lafayette was definitely the better team in both games, and I think they are. Holy Cross is pretty bad. So I don't think those are misleading results. Lafayette is the better team. They will be a favorite here. Don't have a whole lot else to say about that. The game is at Lafayette, by the way. So the Sun Belt games I just talked about are in Pensacola, so those are neutral. And this Lafayette, not to be confused with Louisiana Lafayette, who are just called Louisiana now. Lafayette in the Patriot League is in Pennsylvania, I'm pretty sure. They're a very public side, but they've moved up from 2.5 to 4.5 here. And like I said, this game is at Lafayette. They're the home team here. 95% of the tickets and cash on them. I would not disagree with Lafayette, but you missed out on some of the value. They're up from 2.5 to 4.5 here. But that is what I would do. I would lean towards Lafayette in that one. Yeah, Holy Cross sucks. And then we have Army and Bucknell. These 2 teams split the season series, and I believe the road team actually won both games. Yeah, Army won by 3 at Bucknell. And then both games were really close. Army lost at home by 2 to Bucknell. Now, this game will be at Bucknell, and I know Army won at Bucknell already. Bucknell is a 3-point favorite, and it looks like they are getting all the money here with Army with 81% of the tickets on them, 92% of the cash on Bucknell. So the market read is saying Bucknell. I'm not really going to disagree with that. This is the whatever it is. What is this? This is the 8 versus 9 matchup, and the winner of this game has to play Navy. Now, Army, they're a really high variance team, though, so this is a hard game to predict because Army takes a lot of three-pointers. That's just what they do. I think they're an undersized team. They kind of run like the Princeton offense type of thing. I mean, Navy does as well, but Army is pretty extreme, where I think they just always have guys around the perimeter, and they're just taking a ton of their shots from three. So it is high variance. They could win this game if their threes are going down. If they're not, then it's going to be a long night probably. But it's really interesting that both of their games against Bucknell were close this season, though. So it's definitely a game I would not want anything to do with from a betting perspective. The money is saying Bucknell for what that's worth. They are the slightly better team, and that game is at home for Bucknell, of course, like I said, although they lost there earlier this season against Army. And that was the most recent matchup, I think, too, so I guess it is a little bit of a quick revenge angle for Bucknell there. But it's conference tournament. Revenge kind of gets thrown out the window, you know. I mean, I guess there's something there where the team that lost most recently will have some adjustments to make, but you know, other than that, like the motivation isn't really, I think both teams will be motivated. And then in the Horizon League, they're staggering their games. The Horizon League is very, very weird, dude. They had their 11-10 game last night. The winner of that game is going to play Wright State. And now we're in the first full round of play, and we have IPFW and Green Bay first, which is I don't even know what game this is, which seeds these teams are. I think it's 4 versus 5, maybe, or maybe it's not even that. I don't know what this is. I apologize. I don't even know. But this is one of the Horizon League tournament games. It is in the Barbasol Horizon League tournament. These opening round games are at campus sites. So, like, last night's game was at Cleveland State. This game is at Green Bay, and we get to see Doug Gottlieb potentially throwing chairs in this one. What happened in the regular season? IPFW lost at home by 18 to Green Bay, and they lost on the road by whatever that is, 17 to Green Bay. So they were not really close in either game against Green Bay. The game at Green Bay was the more recent one. IPFW really shot poorly in the game, though. Green Bay had a much better shooting performance there. So IPFW, there are some indicators this is a misleading result. IPFW wasn't as bad. Now, what's really weird about this is, this must have been a neutral site game or something, because I'm like, why was IPFW -1.5? The game was in Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin, but tonight's game is at Green Bay. I don't know. I'm not familiar with these sites. Like, that's not Green Bay's home court, right? Oh, I guess it is. My mistake. I guess that was at Green Bay, but Green Bay is playing. This game is in Green Bay tonight, though. So I guess these games are not at. I'm very confused. I guess these games are not at campus sites, but they're at bigger arenas in the hosting city. I don't understand. Or unless Green Bay plays their home games at two different arenas, maybe they do. I don't know. I'm very confused by that. And then you can see why I'm not playing this game. And then the other game between Green Bay and IPFW. Dude, I don't want to go into that much detail with these conference tournament games. I don't know, man. Like, if I have to start doing this with a ton of games once we get into conference play, I don't know. I don't want these shows to go this long. Interesting, IPFW was an 8.5-point favorite in the home game. And they got killed. They lost the game outright. Green Bay, or I think maybe IPFW was like a 1.5-point favorite in the road game. This is all very, very, very strange to me, man. And looking at this game, it was kind of misleading again. Green Bay did completely dominate the rebound battle in this road game, but they had 25 free throw attempts to IPFW's 8. So that's a huge disparity there. And IPFW had a bad shooting game, and they had way more field goal attempts. So both results were actually kind of misleading. And then what's the line in this game? Green Bay is a 4-point favorite in this game. I just don't get it, man. I would probably take the points with IPFW. Doug Gottlieb is new to this, man. He's a new coach this year. He's not familiar with the tournament structure here. Yeah, I just don't get it. And I don't know exactly what this location is. It is a home game, semi-home game for Green Bay, but I think you could point to some things that were misleading about both of those results for Green Bay versus IPFW. The line looks ridiculous with the fact that IPFW is an 8.5-point home favorite. Although that was before we knew that Green Bay was a decent team. Green Bay was still like basically a pick'em price in the game at Green Bay. So why would Green Bay all of a sudden, and that was more recent, why would Green Bay all of a sudden be a 4-point favorite, you know? I don't understand it, so that's going to be it for that. Oh, and I apologize. I forgot to talk about number 5 Florida and Mississippi State. I forgot to talk about that game on the SEC network at 8 p.m. Not a whole lot to say about it. Florida's a massive favorite here. They are playing to try to get a 1 seed. They're not going to lose this game, but I think they look too good, man, putting up 111 points in an absolute massacre. Pure massacre of Arkansas there, and they have Kentucky on deck. That's a bigger game, too, because Kentucky's been kind of their nemesis up until this year when they finally got a win against them. They're playing Mississippi State here, who's really not a team that's going to draw much of your attention. I know it's their final home game, but you're asking Florida in a spot like this to actually have enough motivation to win this game by more than 20 points. I don't think so. I think you'll get an effort at least out of Mississippi State coming off 3 straight losses. It is a third road game in 4 games for them, but I think it's a big deal at least that they get to try to do anything against Florida. But yeah, I don't think Florida will cover. They're a 22-point favorite here, 85% of the tickets on them, 60% of the cash on Ole Miss. I agree with Mississippi State, Mississippi State, the Cowbells. I agree with the Cowbells plus the points there, Mississippi State, but not a strong opinion for me. Okay. Was that all the conference tournament games? I think it was, right? We talked about the Horizon. We talked about the Sun Belt. We talked about the Patriot. I think those are all the games tonight. It'll be fun, though, to watch these games, man. Tournament time, elimination, etc. All right, let's get into the NHL. We have a lot of NHL games. Decent amount of NBA, too, so this is a long fucking video. And I got to get my bets in if I'm actually going to be doing it. Pittsburgh at Boston. Pittsburgh at my Bruins. Pittsburgh just shut out Vegas 5-0. I mean, kind of a ridiculous result there, man. Anytime you beat a good team like that and you destroy them and shut them out, I think you're going to be in a little bit of a letdown spot off of that. They got Buffalo on deck, too, and Buffalo is up higher in the standings as well. Boston, I mean, the record looks kind of pretty, but their point total is not that great because they just don't have a lot of overtime games, you know. The Bruins are coming off a pretty ugly loss at Philadelphia, 3-1. Couple of days off here. I would lean to the Bruins here. Fairly straightforward handicap, I think, where you're just kind of fading what you saw last. The Bruins are minus 120, 82% of the tickets, 94% of the cash on them. I'll lean that way. The public looks like they're kind of leaning towards the Bruins as well, though. Looking at the team's records, the Penguins are pretty good on the road, 16-7-6. The Bruins are actually really good at home, 22-8-1 at home. So not really a team you want to fade when they're in Boston. The crowd support, I guess, has been crazy this year for them. Teams' overall records are kind of similar looking, but Pittsburgh has a lot more overtime losses there. Vegas at Buffalo, of course, as I just said, Vegas is coming off a really hideous loss to Pittsburgh. At Pittsburgh, they're finishing up road trip. Well, these are the last 2 games of the road trip, and they're having a losing road trip here. And when you get embarrassed like that and shut out like that, I think you're going to get an effort. You're going to give an effort in the next game, I should say. So I think Vegas is going to give you an effort here. Meanwhile, Buffalo is coming off a really good win, and they're returning home from a road trip. They've been on the road since Wednesday, so almost a week. So, you know, I talk about this. When a team returns home from a road trip, they can be a bit distracted. They have to get back to home life. I know it wasn't a long road trip. They were on the road since the Olympic break, though. But they just beat Florida and Tampa on the road, man. They swept their road trip, and they massacred Tampa Bay 6-2. That was a monster win for Buffalo. So I think they're in a letdown spot. I like Vegas in this one. This one almost made my card, but I don't know, man. I mean, Buffalo, you could argue they're going to look ahead to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh was their most recent loss at home, and that's their next game. They lost embarrassingly to Pittsburgh, 5-2. going into the Olympic break. So, and that's an ESPN game, so maybe they will look ahead to that. I guess maybe it's possible to even overlook Vegas here, man. I like Vegas in this one. The money's not agreeing with me. Buffalo's up to minus 143 from minus 120, but I think that's crazy. I mean, I would definitely lean towards Vegas. You're getting a nice underdog price there. 88% of tickets, 95% of the cash on them. On Buffalo, I should say. So Buffalo's a public side, but looks like they're getting the money for now, but I do not agree with it. I like Vegas in that one, man. It would be Vegas or pass in that one. That one's close to being a play for me. Florida at New Jersey on TNT and HBO Max. Florida did just lose as a favorite yesterday at the Islanders. Not a great loss. It was a tough game, though. It was a close game. Now, they're staying in the New York, New Jersey area. Maybe they'll be in bounce-back mode here. New Jersey is in a fine spot as well, though. They just beat the Blues, which is not impressive, and it ended a long losing streak that went back to before the Olympic break. So it's good to kind of just get that monkey off your back. Now you're playing the returning champs. They are returning home, but they were only on the road Thursday, Saturday. I don't think they're going to overlook Florida here, so I think both teams are going to show up. Normally, I would say that favors the better team, which is Florida, but the money looks like it's really indicating on the Devils here. Florida down from minus 110 to minus 108. 84% of the tickets and 61% of the cash on them on Florida. I'll agree with the market in that one and lean towards New Jersey just because I don't really have a strong situational opinion there. Utah at Washington. Utah just got blown out, embarrassed at home by Chicago, 4-0. So you got to think they might bounce back from that. When that happens, a lot of times it's good to just go out on the road. They're probably in a letdown spot after playing Colorado and Minnesota and smashing Minnesota in a win that I gave out on the show. It might be good to just go out on the road, focus on hockey, bounce back from that bad loss where it kind of makes sense because they were in a letdown spot. Washington is off a bad game too, though. They just lost at Montreal. They've had a couple of days off. They're now returning from Montreal. They'd beaten Vegas the previous game, so I don't know. Maybe difficult for them to try to put in a huge effort 2 games in a row. What do we do with this game? Well, I'm not going to give a play on it is what I'm doing, but I like Utah in the game. Washington down from minus 125 to minus 121, but they got 53% of the tickets, 61% of the cash on them. So the money is coming in on Washington, but I kind of disagree with that. I think Utah is in a stronger bounce-back spot there. Nashville at Columbus. Nashville did just lose at home to Detroit yesterday. Both teams played yesterday. I told you I liked Detroit in that game. The market, I think, was disagreeing with it, but I think I said that. I think I liked Detroit there. Nashville had taken Dallas into overtime in the prior game, so difficult. It was a difficult spot for them, but now they have to travel to Columbus, which is kind of weird as well. Columbus played yesterday as well, but they were in New York, and they won against the Rangers in overtime, although we know the Rangers are really bad at home. But still, Columbus off a win, having to travel here to Nashville. They got the back home to play Nashville. They got the returning champs, Florida, on deck. I think the spot is better for Nashville here. The money's coming in on Columbus, though, although they dropped from minus 145 to minus 131. 71% of tickets, 95% of the cash on Columbus. But I don't really agree with it. I would lean Nashville slightly there. Chicago at Winnipeg. Chicago coming off a blowout upset win on the road at Utah. Really nice win. Now they're having to go up to Winnipeg. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days. 4th game in 6 days, all in different cities with 2 games back-to-back in elevation. I don't know how they even did that on a back-to-back, beating Utah after playing Colorado. I don't know. Ridiculous win there, but kind of a weird spot now. They might not have a whole lot left here. A lot of travel for Chicago here. Winnipeg, though, they're returning home from a road trip. They went on the road. They went to Vancouver and then down to Anaheim and then Jose and all to San Jose. They went to Jose. They went to go see that guy in the Tampa area. No, Winnipeg, 3 road games in a row. They all went into overtime. Now they're coming back home after being gone for almost a week. And you know I talk about that when a team returns home from a road trip. A lot of times it's a bad spot. They can get distracted. They got Tampa Bay on deck, which is a bigger game. So both teams are kind of in bad spots here, man. The money's coming in on the under, even though this is the type of game where I say that an over a lot of times makes sense. Because, like, the defenses could lapse a little bit when both teams are in bad spots. Winnipeg down from minus 165 to minus 154. They're very public. 93% of tickets, 97% of the cash on Winnipeg. That return home spot is quite bad, I will say. So I might, if you force me to give an opinion on the side, I might slightly lean towards Chicago there, going against the public, but there's no way that I'd want to do it. Dallas at Calgary. Dallas coming off a blowout, 6-1 win over Vancouver. They've been rolling, but they've been rolling through a lot of bad teams. But Calgary is also a bad team. But they're on a back-to-back. They're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. That's not that easy to do, especially coming off a blowout win. You might be feeling a little bit good about yourselves. They got Colorado on deck, which is a much bigger game. Calgary did just play a close game against Anaheim, though. And they are returning home from a road trip that took them to California. They've been on the road since Thursday. So still, even though, kind of a quick road trip, it is still a road trip return. It's a fourth game in 6 days, too, all in different cities, which isn't that great. But the return home spot may be a little bit mitigated because they're playing Dallas. You don't really overlook Dallas. So maybe you'll still get an effort out of Calgary here. Dallas is up from minus 120 to minus 130 here, though. It's not a horrible spot for Dallas. It is still a weird spot for Calgary, having to return home from California. I guess I'll have a slight lean to Dallas there, but it almost looks way too easy to play Dallas, though, as the favorite there. But I really don't like teams returning home from road trips at all, man. And speaking of which, we're going to fade one of them for my best bet in hockey right now. We're going to take Ottawa on the money line against Edmonton here. Now, Ottawa, they are coming off a rivalry win, if you want to call it that, against Toronto. So I guess there is a slight argument they'd be in a letdown spot here, but they have a couple of days off. This is going to be like kind of a road trip beginning, I think, even though they were on the road at Toronto. This is almost like the start of the road trip because now they go out west a bit. And they get to play Edmonton. You got to think you're going to get up for a game against Edmonton because they've been so good over the last couple of years. I think you will get an effort out of Toronto here. With a couple of days off, you should have Ullmark in net again. He's played both games after the All-Star break, but he's a grinder. So I think you will have him play again here. The reason he didn't play after he came back and he played 2 games before the Olympic break, the reason he didn't play in that third game is because it was a back-to-back. And then I think they rested him because I think he was going to play in the Olympics, so I think they rested him after that. Ullmark, I assume he was the goalie for Finland in the Olympics, although I'm not entirely, or Sweden, excuse me, not Finland. I should know that because I'm from Sweden. I'm from Sweden. No, my ancestors are from Sweden. Holy crap, it's early in the morning. And Ullmark was on the Bruins as well. So, but yes, Ullmark I think probably played for Sweden in the Olympics. Anyway. I think you'll get an effort out of Ottawa here. It'll probably be Ullmark in net here. But I also think the spot for Edmonton is really bad. And I don't trust any of Edmonton's goalies at this point, really. I think Pickard is hurt, so they've been using Jarry, who they got over from Pittsburgh, and they've been using Ingram. And it hasn't been good. I mean, look at Edmonton's last 10 games. They've allowed 4 or more goals in 8 of their last 10 games. That is pretty horrendous. This Edmonton team has been giving up a ton of goals, and they're returning home from a road trip that was a 3-game road trip because they had a road game before the Olympic break. So they've been on the road for almost a week, but they did have to go all the way to Southern California. Now they're coming back up home, and again, I'm going to talk about it. Road trip return, it's bad. It can distract you. They've had a couple of days off, but sometimes that gets you settled in at home and adds to the distraction. You know what I mean? You got home stuff to do, whatever. And they have big games on deck against Carolina, Vegas, Colorado, Dallas. Those are the next 4 games. And they're all TV-ish games. ESPN, TNT, HBO Max, True TV for the first 2 games. And then Hulu is carrying the next 2 after that, whereas this game tonight is just ESPN Plus. We'll take Ottawa here. Edmonton's a public side, 70% of the tickets, 66% of the cash on them. The line is dropping, so you got to try to find the best price you can. Edmonton's already down from minus 140 to minus 118. grab Ottawa on the money line, man, is what I'm saying there. Hopefully maybe the line will go back up a little bit just so you can get a better price, because Edmonton is a public side. It looks like more of the actual money is on Ottawa, and the public doesn't really move hockey lines, especially not in a mid-season Edmonton-Ottawa game like that. All right, TNT, HBO Max, and True TV. The first of the doubleheader was Florida, New Jersey. The second is Tampa, Minnesota. This is a pretty good game. This might be the best hockey game of the night. Tampa Bay is coming off a bad loss to Buffalo, 6-2. But look at what they were coming off of, man. They lost a long win streak, and they did it against Carolina in a very close game. That was a big game at Carolina. So I think they were in a hangover spot, and they got caught. They got blasted by Buffalo. Now they got a couple of days off, and they get to start a road trip. So I think it's a much better spot for Tampa Bay here to bounce back from a horrible loss at home. Sometimes, and especially when you can explain why that loss happened, because they were coming off that big game. A lot of times the team will bounce back nicely, go out on the road, focus on hockey. Usually you want to get the road trip off on the right foot, so it is a focus spot. Minnesota's coming off a bad loss, though. They did just lose in a return home spot, although it was only from a 2-game road trip. But it was a road trip that took them into elevation on back-to-back games, back-to-back nights, and then they had one day off. They played St. Louis. They didn't do well. They lost to St. Louis. So I expect a bounce back from Minnesota here at home as well. Positive spot for both teams. So the money is coming in on Tampa Bay. And the odds makers are telling you not to trust Minnesota's record, dude, because they are just really not that good. I think they're fine, but they're not as good as their record looks, I should say. Tampa Bay is a very legit team. They're up from -125 to -141, 58% of the tickets, 66% of the cash on Tampa Bay. I agree with the Tampa Bay side in that one, but it's not a strong opinion. I think both teams are in positive spots, so it comes down to which team is actually the better team. I believe that's Tampa. Tampa's been really good on the road, too, 19-6-4 on the road. Minnesota pretty good at home, 17-7-7. But, yeah, Tampa Bay, their really good road record is not something to overlook. They've been really good there. They're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs, man. Colorado at Anaheim. Colorado just won at L.A., even though L.A. had just fired their coach. Colorado won last night, so they're on a back-to-back, but they only have to travel from L.A. to Anaheim. But they'll switch woods here from Blackwood to Wedgwood in net here, and it hasn't really mattered that much for Colorado. I'm surprised they won the game against L.A. I thought L.A. might be – I'm not surprised because Colorado's the better team, but L.A., I thought they'd have a little bit of a spark from the fired coach phenomenon. Now we got Colorado playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. They do have Dallas and Minnesota on deck, and Minnesota's a quick revenge game, too, and then Edmonton after that. You could make the argument those are bigger games than this Anaheim game is. Anaheim's got an all-right record. They've been playing all right. They don't play many games into overtime, it doesn't look like. They've won 5 in a row. They just barely escaped against Calgary, and they've had a day off. They had yesterday off, so the fact that they didn't play well against Calgary, maybe they were looking ahead here. I prefer Anaheim in this spot, and Anaheim's very good at home, by the way. Colorado down from -155 to -143, although they look like they are getting the money. 50% of the tickets, 86% of the cash on Colorado. I don't really agree with that cash percentage, though. I would lean to Anaheim in this one on the money line, I suppose. Anaheim's really good at home, dude. 28-1 at home. Not 28-1, 20 wins, 8 losses, and 1 overtime loss at home. Colorado is quite good on the road, too, though. 18-6-5, but Anaheim's been very good at home, much better at home than on the road. And then we do have Montreal at San Jose to finish off the hockey board here. Montreal did just crush Washington. They're starting a road trip, and yeah, starting the road trip, a lot of times it will put you in a focus spot here, but going out to the Pacific time zone, having to play a real late night game, may not be the best thing for them. And I know in our game here, it's a pretty late game for an Eastern team like Ottawa, too. I know that. But it's a different situation there. Montreal here, yeah, the Eastern team's going all the way to the West Coast for a 10 p.m. game. A lot of times it'll mess with their biological clock a little bit. They're coming off a very satisfying win. Usually you will be focused to start the road trip, but I don't know. After you beat a team 6-2 and you're having to play a late night game, I don't know. San Jose just beat Winnipeg in overtime. I don't think they're going to be overconfident from that, and they are staying at home. So I probably prefer the Sharks in this one, even though I think they're an overrated team. The money is coming in on the Sharks for what it's worth. Montreal down from minus 135 to minus 122. Strong market read on San Jose here. 69% of tickets on Montreal, 53% of the cash on San Jose. So the money is coming in on San Jose there. And I agree with it. All right. Let's finish it off with the NBA here, man. A lot of NBA games today. I think 10 games. All-night games. Dallas at Charlotte is the first game. Dallas is on a 3-game losing streak. They did just lose at home to Oklahoma City. Maybe it'll be good for them to just go out on the road and focus on basketball. Sometimes you can disrupt some losing momentum that way. 2 of those losses at home are really bad against Sacramento and Memphis, 2 teams that are just all backups now. Losing to Oklahoma City, obviously, you can accept that. Charlotte on a nice little run here. They've won, how many games in a row is that? 4. But not against great teams, but they are rolling. They have momentum, but they got to play Boston tomorrow, man, and then Miami, Phoenix. Those might all be bigger games than Dallas. So I'm going to probably slightly lean to Dallas here. Not a strong opinion. Hornets are up to 12.5 here. 80% of the tickets, 80% of the cash as well. Very public side in the Hornets. I would fade them. I still don't really think Dallas is as bad as people think they are, but they do have injuries. So that's something to be aware of here, especially the Cooper Flag injury. Although I think he's been back for a bit now, so I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't know if did he play in the last game? Because you don't want to be on Dallas if it's like an injured player theory spot. You know what I mean? Where's Dallas here? No, he did not play in the last game, so I think it is an injured player spot here for Dallas, unless he's out longer. Let me see. Oh, no, he's still out. My mistake. He's not even listed on the injury report, though. But, yeah, he's out. He's doubtful for tonight. So, yeah, that makes sense because I think if Flag was playing, the Hornets would not be this much of a favorite. But, yes, given that it's not going to be a reverse injured player spot, I would lean towards Dallas in that one plus the points. Because, again, when your star player comes back, the line will adjust to it. A lot of times it'll over-adjust, and you have to work him back, and it can be a chemistry issue. You know what I mean? So the value tends to be in fading that team when that happens. Like last night, by the way, I did not realize that Giannis was going to come back for the Bucks last night, and the Celtics decided to rest Jaylen Brown. So the Celtics went down to a 4-point favorite. So if you did take Milwaukee, you beat the closing number, but the Celtics crushed Milwaukee in that game. I hate these fucking emergency broadcast signals, man. Comes from out of nowhere, freaks me out. Fuck you. We don't need to hear it. But anyway, yeah, the Celtics wound up winning that game, and I think it was a combination of the Celtics realized they had to step up their effort without Brown, although they intentionally rested him, so I don't know if it was really that, but I think they probably took Milwaukee more seriously because Giannis was playing, and Milwaukee had to work him back in, and that star player coming back really affects you sometimes, you know what I mean? So it would have been a spot where I might have changed my mind once we realized that Giannis was coming back and the line was down to 4. I probably would have actually, been leaning more towards the Celtics there. So NBA can really throw you off sometimes, man. But yeah, and Giannis was traveling a ton in that game, by the way, though. He never gets called for travels. He walks like every time he's near the basket. Kind of pisses me off. All right, Detroit and Cleveland. Detroit just beat Orlando, and that was a loss for me on the show. Detroit, I thought, was in a Cleveland sandwich. They'd beaten Cleveland in overtime the game prior to that after beating Oklahoma City. So I thought it was a really bad spot for them with Cleveland up again on deck. But they won anyway. Now they're on the road again at Cleveland. Maybe it's a little bit of a revenge spot for Cleveland here. I think Cleveland is still without Donovan Mitchell in this game, by the way. So it will be a Cleveland game without Mitchell yet again. Detroit was, I think, about a 7-point favorite at home. I think they'll be a small-ish favorite in this game, if I'm not mistaken. I'd probably lean slightly towards Cleveland here in the quick revenge spot, if you want to call it that. Maybe Detroit won't take them as seriously this time, but especially with Mitchell not being back yet. At least I don't think he is. No, he is not. Yeah, he's listed as out already. All right, anyway. For Cleveland, they did just have a worse game because I faded them in the sandwich spot as well, and they barely got by Brooklyn, if you remember. Now, they are returning home from a road trip, though, and I talk about road trip returns. It was only a 3-game road trip, less than a week, though. They stayed basically in the Midwest, except they went to Brooklyn. They had a bad game in Brooklyn. They're coming back home. I think they will give you an effort here, though, against Detroit, even though usually I'm going to say the road trip return is a distracted spot. I think I would lean to Cleveland here. Pistons are up from 1.5 to 2.5 here. 66% of the tickets, 52% of the cash on them. The public is on the Pistons side, less of the money on them. Slight lean for me to the Cavs. Washington at Orlando. Washington just had a close game last night against Houston, so I'm not sure they're in the greatest spot after that. That was a nice effort from I don't want to say that completely because Washington made a run at the end of the game that made the game cosmetic. Like, the game was pretty much over. Houston was winning the game by double digits, and then Washington made a run late. So I don't really want to say they really played Houston that close, but that's what they're coming off of. It's a back-to-back. They're going to Orlando here. Orlando faded at the end of that game against Dallas pretty badly, unfortunately, and they're staying at home. So I do think the spot is a little bit better for Orlando here. Wagner is not coming back yet for Orlando. The money's all coming in on the Wizards, though. 59% of the tickets are on the Magic. They're 15.5-point favorite. 74% of the cash on the Wizards. The market read is all Wizards, but I don't really totally agree with it. It's not the highest total, 228.5, but I don't know. I think I would slightly lean towards laying it with, or it's a 227.5. It looks like I would slightly lean towards laying it with Orlando there, but the market read is saying the complete opposite. Brooklyn at Miami. Brooklyn is coming off that close call. That was actually a close call against Cleveland, and they almost won the game, man. That was a play that I gave on the show, as I said. We got the cover with Brooklyn. Now they're traveling to Miami. I mean, I don't think they're going to overlook Miami, but coming off a monster effort like that against Cleveland, I don't know what they're going to have left in the tank, but Miami's coming off a really nice win against Houston. But they've had a couple of days off. They are staying at home. They don't have a look ahead because they're actually playing Brooklyn twice. I'd lay the points of the Heat probably if I was going to play this one. The Nets, I don't know, man. Just having to put in an effort like that a couple games in a row, it just might not happen. The Heat are a 13-point favorite here. 76% of tickets, 90% of the cash on them. Do I actually want to do it? No, I do not. But I would lean towards laying it. Next up is my one play in the NBA. And it is the Toronto Raptors. I know the Raptors are not as good at home, but the Knicks are really not that good on the road, so that kind of balances out. Toronto's only 16-15 at home, but the Knicks are 15-14 on the road. So the Knicks are significantly worse on the road than they are at home. I know Toronto's a little bit worse at home, but we're going to do it here. And look at the spot that the Knicks are in here, man. The Knicks just blasted the Spurs. And up next, they got an ESPN game against Oklahoma City tomorrow, back at home. And they have this one game where they have to travel to Toronto for some reason between two home games. And then after Oklahoma City, they got Denver and the Lakers. And in fact, they're starting a road trip and going to Denver and then the Lakers. So these are huge games on deck. Even though they're against Western Conference teams, this game is sandwiched in between two of the top teams in the West, like the two top teams in the West right now. And the Knicks just beat Toronto not that long ago in the same spot. Well, not in the same situational spot, but in the same location. It was on a back-to-back, by the way, but the Knicks had a really easy game against Sacramento the game before that. And I know it was one of these single-game trips. Again, yeah, they went to Toronto and they won by 27, but I think that's going to cause them to not take Toronto seriously now. That was back on January 28th. That was the last time they played. The Knicks did not have that game surrounded by big games back then. It was between Sacramento and Portland. Well, this is a lot different now, man, and Toronto might make some adjustments to that. The Knicks might not take them seriously. We're going to play Toronto here. 79% of tickets, only 61% of the cash on the Knicks. They're up from 1.5 to 2.5 here. We'll grab the couple of points with the Raptors in that one and hope that they're not the Craptors. NBC and Peacock has a doubleheader starting at 8 p.m. with San Antonio at Philadelphia. San Antonio is coming off a blowout loss to the Knicks. But that ended a long win streak for San Antonio. So San Antonio had won 11 games in a row, I think, or 10 games. No, yeah, 11 games in a row. And I talk about that. When you have a step-up game like that and you lose a win streak like that, a lot of times it will hang you over into the next game. So that could happen here to San Antonio, where they could potentially lose the same game twice. And they have a big game against Detroit on deck when they come back home. And it's possible they don't take Philadelphia totally seriously, with George being suspended, Embiid being in and out of the lineup with an injured knee. I don't love San Antonio here in this spot. I mean, you could, I guess, make the argument they'll bounce back because that loss was so ugly to the Knicks, but I don't know, man. The Sixers are coming into this off of a blowout loss in Boston. They really faded in that game. I think they played pretty well early in the game, but the Celtics pulled away. Celtics, by the way, dude, I love that, they have this next man up mentality. And again, it's like with the Celtics, they have a different star player in every game. Like, it was Cada 2 days ago. Last night, Hugo Gonzalez, their late first-round draft pick, put up a double-double last night. I like it, man. He puts in massive effort out there on the court. He's like a massive pest, and he usually doesn't put up a lot of stats, but he was padding the stat sheet last night too. So I like it, man. I think that was a great late first-round pick for the Celtics. I'm a fan. All right. But yes, Philadelphia, I think they will get up for this game. They're coming back home. It's a game against the Spurs. It's on TV. They don't really have anything upcoming, so I would lean to the Sixers in this game. The Spurs are getting the money, though. They're up from 6 to 8, though. The Spurs are definitely good, but laying 8 on the road, oh, my God. 51% of tickets, 62% of the cash on the Spurs, so they are getting the money right now. I'd probably look the other way, although the Spurs are very dangerous on the road, though. 21-11 on the road. Sixers are only 16-15 at home, which is not good. And Embiid is out, by the way. He's not playing, so they're without Embiid and George here, and Johni Broome, a former Auburn star there. So, yeah, it's an injured Philadelphia team, which is why they're a huge underdog here. But a lot of times you see these NBA teams, they're, lesser-known players will step it up in games like this. So I would still take the points with Philly if I was going to play it, but I don't want to do that. Oklahoma City is at Chicago. Oklahoma City, they got some big games on deck, man. They just beat Dallas pretty easily. Now they're going to Chicago. Pretty easy team to overlook. Chicago's been awful recently, and Oklahoma City has the Knicks on ESPN tomorrow. Then they got an ABC game against the Warriors. Then they got Denver on Peacock. Then they got NBC Sports. Then they got Boston on Prime. Then an ABC game against Minnesota. So they have some monster games on deck in their next 5 games. Could be a potential look ahead here for sure. Chicago did just get a win, believe it or not. They finally ended their losing streak with a blowout win over Milwaukee, which was still without Giannis at the time. But I think what that tells you is that Chicago, they're not completely throwing some of these games. They actually put in an effort for once. And breaking a long losing streak like that, I like that for a team, because now you don't have that losing mindset, you know what I mean? Oh my God, they'd lost 11 games in a row or whatever. Now they finally break the losing streak. And you get to play, face the Thunder and host the Thunder. I think they will at least show up in this game and give you an effort. So I would lean to the Bulls here. The Thunder have 86% of tickets and 73% of the cash on them. They're down from 11 to 10.5 here. So they're a very public road favorite there. I would lean towards the Bulls plus the points there. Memphis is at Minnesota. Memphis looking actually okay in their last couple of games. They're starting to come together with all these backups that they have on their team. Because Memphis, they're without Edey. They're without Morant. They traded away Jackson. Was that his name? They have a different Jackson on their team now, though. G.G. Jackson. Good game, man. Not Gigi. He's not a female stripper. Memphis did just beat Dallas and Indiana on the road. I didn't really expect them to beat Indiana on the road, so good job, Memphis, I guess. They're actually playing to win some games for once. And, I think they will give you an effort against the T-Wolves, because the T-Wolves are a good team. So I think they will show up. Disney Plus wanted me to log in. Yeah, isn't that just great? I'll do it later, man, because they're attached to ESPN now, of course. That's how I watch stuff on ESPN Plus, man. It's all through the Disney Plus bundle, unfortunately. Minnesota just pulled off a nice road upset against Denver. And you remember I talked about that game. I liked Minnesota in that game because Denver was coming off, I think, that game against Oklahoma City. Didn't give it out as a play, unfortunately. But a lot of games. I'm going to be right about a lot of games that I pass on, That's just the nature of the thing. Like, you want to focus on what you think are the best games, win those. But if you know what you're doing, you're going to be right about games that you pass on, too. You know what I mean? It's just the name of the game when you're really selective. But I do like Memphis in this one. I think Minnesota could be in a bit of a letdown off that nice, huge road win against Denver. They are returning home from a road trip where they were gone for a week, and they went out to the Pacific Coast and then into elevation. And road trip return, you might not have total focus in your next game there. They at least have a winning team on deck with Toronto, so... yeah, I would lean to Memphis in this game. The money looks like it kind of disagrees with the T-Wolves at 14, minus 14 is the line here. You're taking a lot of points with Memphis. 78% of tickets, 83% of the cash on the T-Wolves. The Republic side, even though they do have more of the cash on them for now, I would fade the Public in that one, though. I would lean towards Memphis. New Orleans at the Lakers. New Orleans just got blown out by the Clippers, but they are staying in LA for this game, so at least there's that. It's not a horrible travel spot, but they're playing a lot of games recently. They're playing a fourth game in 6 days, I think is what this is, all in different cities. That blowout loss, by the way, was a back-to-back where they're having to fly out of elevation from Utah to the West Coast, so it's not an easy spot for New Orleans, and maybe they will bounce back, although having to play all these road games in a row is tough, but it's not in all different cities, though. That's the thing. I think if I said that, I misspoke because 2 of the games were in Utah. The other 2 are in LA, so they're not having to really travel between all these games. So that does mitigate it a little bit. And maybe they will be in a bounce back. They'll probably at least give you an effort against the Lakers. Zion Williamson is like a game-time decision right now for New Orleans, so I don't know if he's going to play or not. The Lakers are not really in a bad – well, I don't know if I'm going to say that. They're coming off a game against Sacramento. That's fine. Easy win over Sacramento. Not surprising there. But they do have Denver on deck. That is a big game on his Amazon Prime coming up. So it's a potential look ahead here. So I actually would lean to the Pelicans in this one. The Lakers are down from 10 to 8.5 here. Don't know why it dropped because I didn't really see any injury. The only player on the injury report at all was Zion for the Pelicans, and he was the game-time decision, so I don't know. 58% of the tickets, 78% of the cash on the Lakers. I'd probably lean towards fading the Lakers, though, man, but it's not one that I feel strongly about. And then the second game of the doubleheader is a terrible game between a massively injured Phoenix Suns team and a massively injured Sacramento team. The top two players on both teams aren't playing in this game, I don't think, with Booker and Brooks for Phoenix and Levine and Sabonis for Sacramento have both been shut down. So all of them are out for this game. And then there are even more injuries for Sacramento with Hunter is out for the season. Murray is out. It's just insane, dude. Totally insane that this game gets a TV billing and there are just injuries all over the place here. Booker is actually back, so my mistake. So at least there's that. I thought he was going to be out for longer because it said he was going to be reevaluated. He hasn't played. Well, actually, this is interesting because he hasn't played since he barely played at all against the Spurs, and he went down again. But it seems like he is coming back in this game because he's not on the injury report. And in the depth chart, he doesn't have the O next to his name. So I think Booker is playing in this game. Let me see if there's any news on that. Yeah, I mean, with the hip strain, he was out a week. That was 10 days ago. Yeah, I think he is going to be back. So you know what that means? That means it's an injured player theory spot for Phoenix here, man. So if your star player is coming back, and they just beat the Lakers, too. So I think this is a fade spot for Phoenix here. You know, I always talk about when your star player comes back from injury, the line will move a little bit to accommodate for that. It can overreact to it. The team has to get used to him playing again. He hasn't really played, again, he played during the All-Star. They had the All-Star break, and then when he came out of the All-Star break, he only played 9 minutes. So they haven't played with him for quite a while, man. So that might kind of mess them up a little bit. And they're coming off a big win over the Lakers, so they might be in a letdown spot. That was on Thursday, so they've had a lot of time off. But I don't know if having time off to think about that good win is really that helpful. It's helpful to get Booker back at least, and that'll help them in the long term for sure. But Sacramento just lost to that very same Laker team. The problem I have with Sacramento is they're returning home from a road trip, and they've been on the road for more than a week, so that's not good. When a team returns home from the road trip, I always talk about it. They can be distracted. They have to get back to home life. They got stuff to do. So that's going to make it difficult for Sacramento here, man. I think I would actually still lean to Sacramento in this one, though, and the money is agreeing with that. The Suns are down from 10.5 to 10 here. I think with the letdown spot plus the same common opponent recently, plus the reverse injured player spot all going against the Suns here, I think that might negate the return home spot, even though the return home spot is really bad. It's a stay away, though, for me, obviously. Could be a game where the over makes sense. Although I don't know about the over either, because when you have a star player like Booker coming back, a lot of times the total might over-adjust, but the total actually went down 4.5 points. I don't know. Like a lot of times with a star player coming back, you don't really necessarily want to play the over because you're thinking, more scoring is going to happen because he's back. You know what I mean? But with both teams in bad spots, I think it can affect the defense in a negative way. 71% of the tickets are on the Suns, 89% of the cash on the Kings. So the money is really, really strongly indicating on the Kings. And then there is some money on the over as well there. So keeping all that in mind, the market is saying the Kings for what all that's worth. And that is the last game, finally. Woo! 2-hour video. All right, the plays today one more time. College basketball, TCU plus the points. Xavier plus the 1.5 or whatever. And then Moneyline on Texas A&M. Or I'm not going to beat you up again if you want to lay the one, fine. Ottawa and NHL on the money line, and then Toronto plus the points in the NBA. That's going to do it. 5 plays today. Let's get some wins. Learn to toad on Twitter. Learn to toad on Instagram. Check me out, baby. Throw me some support. It's all appreciated. Boost this channel. Like, subscribe. Shout out to Brad, who I think his name is Brad. He's been in my comments recently giving me some very positive feedback. I like that, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're continuing to watch. Like, subscribe, review, leave good comments. Or like, subscribe, and leave good comments, I should say. And leave reviews on the audio on Apple and Spotify. Boost it all up, man. Boost the YouTube channel. Boost the audio on Apple and Spotify. We have a ukulele channel as well, covered in uke. So boost that as well on YouTube, and then patreon.com/learntotode. You can throw me some support there, get some bonus uke content. And then we will have a new episode of Loser Cast tonight. Check that out at 10 p.m. where you get to just kind of hang out and relax, have some fun, laugh, nominate some losers. Show up for that. That's going to do it. I appreciate it. Let's get some wins here. Enjoy the March Madness beginning, the conference tournaments. Peace.